So I did this video for the Championship a couple of weeks ago and I had a lot of requests to do it for the Premier League as well. So what I thought we'd do for today's video is have a bit of a discussion about how strong the newly promoted clubs are and whether they have enough to survive in the Premier League. In today's video we'll be putting FIFA 19 to the test as well. I've gone ahead and made all the transfers that the newly promoted clubs have made so far, and we'll be putting them into the Premier League into a career mode, simulating the season and seeing if their new squads have enough to survive according to FIFA. And as always, I'd be interested to know from you guys whether you are a Championship fan, a Premier League fan, or a fan of one of the newly promoted clubs. How do you see your club getting on next season? Out of all the clubs who have been promoted, who do you think is most likely to stay up and get relegated? I always find it interesting looking at the bookmakers' odds at this point of the season and looking at them from Sky Bet. We've got Sheffield United currently as the favourites to be relegated, probably not as a massive surprise to any Blades fans. You know, they always expecting to be the underdog and think that Chris Wilder will want to play on that. After that, we then got Norwich and then Aston Villa. So all three clubs are currently the favourites to be going down. And then after those three, we got Burnley, Brighton, Newcastle, Southampton, Bournemouth, Watford and Crystal Palace as the remainders of the teams who may be in that relegation battle. I do find it interesting that the bookmakers have got Aston Villa as the least likely club to be relegated there. Obviously, they've been very busy in this transfer window so far, which we will be having a bit of a discussion about. But for me personally, if I had to put money on it now, I'd probably say that I've got the most faith in Norwich at this point. If I had to back one side who I think is going to survive and adapt to the Premier League, I think that Norwich are probably the safest bet in my view. I think Aston Villa could be a bit of a wild card, we'll discuss them in a moment, and Sheffield United, similar to that, I think could go either way. But from looking at those odds, I'd be interested to know from you guys, who do you see as the three clubs going down from the Premier League this season? So we'll look at each newly promoted squad, what their current strongest starting 11 is at this point in time, starting out with Aston Villa. So this is probably the squad based on the new signings that they made so far, who would be lining up on the first day of the Premier League should no more new signings come in from now until then. Looking at this team, I think it's obvious the positions that they still need to address in this window. Obviously, goalkeeper being quite a main priority for Aston Villa. So far, we've already seen them being linked to the likes of Jack Butland, Tom Heaton and Darren Randolph. I'm sure that eventually Villa will get one of those deals over the line. Despite how good Jed Steer did towards the end of last season and how well he did in the playoffs, I think an experienced goalkeeper will serve them well. Also, that defensive midfielder position, Conor Hourihane, although he can be sort of a deep line playmaker from that position in the Premier League, they are in need of someone to break up play there. They were heavily linked to Calvin Phillips a few weeks ago. However, it does now look more than likely that Douglas Luiz will be the player coming into that position. Another central defender will be welcome for Villa as well, and as well as that, another right winger to, I see Jota as more of the backup player for them in the Premier League. I don't see him as starting week in, week out after, obviously, he was signed from Birmingham in quite controversial circumstances. Although, to be fair, I am interested to see how he gets on at Villa. I don't see him being quite, you know, sort of a mainstay in the team, but I see him maybe fitting into their system a little bit better than he did fit in at Blues, and who knows, maybe he could chip in with a few goals now and again. You know, he knows the manager there. I think the player that most people are most excited to see how he does in the Premier League is Wesley, probably their big summer signing, playing at striker there. Already in this window though, Aston Villa have spent, you know, in excess of I think about £70 million. They've still got a lot of targets to bring in, so they've certainly been splashing the cash so far. Although this squad was in need of that, you know, they were in quite a similar situation to Fulham, and I know I hate the comparisons that everyone's making to Villa and Fulham at the moment, but they came up in similar circumstances in the fact that a lot of the core group of players was on loan for that Villa team last season. They wanted to replace them and in some circumstances bring them back into the squad, you know, with players like Tyrone Mings, El Ghazi as well, and that was always going to cost a little bit of money. So Villa at the moment, I think, are looking fairly well set up for this season if they do get those deals over the line. You know, if they do get Douglas Luiz in and the centre-back they're currently being linked to, that squad's not looking too bad at the moment. After that, we got Norwich City. I'd say that this is probably their strongest lineup going into the Premier League. Only one new addition probably making it into that stronger squad at this point in time, and that being Farman, of course, the goalkeeper brought over from the Bundesliga for the season on loan. I think the goalkeeper probably was a position they were in need of strengthening, despite Tim Krul playing, you know, having a large role to play last season. Norwich's defensive record was one aspect that I think that a few people would be putting into question with this squad stepping up to the Premier League. You know, they conceded 57 goals last season, so that was always going to be something that was going to be put under scrutiny. I think that bringing in a new goalkeeper, either to be that number one or to push Tim Krul, was always going to be a good thing for Norwich. Some of the players they brought in Dermot from the Bundesliga, the striker, to have a bit of competition with Timu Pukki going forward. Patrick Roberts as well, an option out wide, and they've just brought in Sam Byron as a backup option for Max Irons as well. But looking at that squad at the moment, I see the majority of that squad making the step up to the Premier League. I thought that Norwich played some brilliant football last season, and I just hope that that sort of attacking philosophy isn't lost in transition as they do go up to the Premier League. You know, we see it sometimes, some sides play some beautiful football in the Championship, but they can't quite adapt to the speed of the Premier League. They revert to being a bit more cautious and defensive, and then after time things start to slowly unravel. I don't think that will be the case with Norwich though. I think it's been a gradual building process with them under Daniel Farke. Emi Buendia is someone who I think could really rip up the league. I'm tempted to put him in my fantasy football team, I'm not going to lie. And of course the goals of Teemu Pukki are going to be absolutely crucial for Norwich if they are to survive. And then finally we've got Sheffield United, probably the underdog coming into the Premier League this season. Not a lot of people, you know, were expecting Sheffield United to do as well as they did last season, but Chris Wilder and this side continue to defy expectations. They've also got quite a uniqueness in the way that they like to play and set up, which could take the Premier League by surprise. You know, they like to play with their wing backs very high up. I'm also interested by the players they brought in so far. Luke Freeman, someone who I think has been one of the most underrated playmakers in the Championship for the past few years now. Interested to see how he makes a step up. Of course, they went ahead and signed Callum Robinson from my team, Preston North End, so I'm going to be keeping an eye out for him and Sheffield United next season. With Sheffield United not playing with wingers, it'll be interesting to see what role he actually goes and does there. I've put him into that striker position alongside Billy Sharp. Probably going to be someone who's going to look to press the back line. You know, you've got Billy Sharp in there, someone who's going to look to be that poacher in and around the box. Callum Robinson offers something a little bit different from that. He can drift out to the left hand side. He can have that link up play with Ender Stevens, look to get the balls into the box for Billy Sharp. But probably the most interesting thing for Sheffield United has been the signing of Ravel Morrison. I think a lot of people are very excited to see how that one works out. You know, it really could go either way. You know, he's a player who has had attitude problems over the years, but a real quality player, and that could be a diamond in the rough that if, you know, Chris Wilder can get the best out of him, he could be the player to unlock the Premier League next season. Looking at the squad, obviously they are in need of a goalkeeper. Dean Henderson played a large part in their fantastic defensive record last season, being on loan from Manchester United. That's a position they're going to look into addressing, but overall I think they'll keep the core of the squad fairly similar. But what we'll do now, we'll put those sides into a career mode, we'll simulate the Premier League season and see which of them, if any, can survive with their current squads. So as you can see now, this is how the Premier League table is lining up with all the new clubs in there. So what we're going to be doing, we'll be simulating towards the end of the season. I decided to pick Man City as the side, not that it matters too much. So we'll be going right to the end of the season and then we'll be looking at the outcome as to who has survived. So without further ado, let's see what happens. So guys, the simulation has now been concluded. I'm interested to see what FIFA has come up with its verdicts. You know, are the newly promoted clubs going to survive in the Premier League? I'm also interested to see who's going to win it. So Spurs have won the Premier League according to this prediction. Man United 2nd, Man City 3rd, Arsenal 4th, Liverpool 5th and Chelsea 6th. Chelsea of course struggling without Eden Hazard in there. But we'll look at the table from the bottom upwards. So the bottom 3, Sheffield United have gone down, but interestingly enough, the other 2 newly promoted clubs have survived according to FIFA. So the bottom 3, we've got Sheffield United, Bournemouth and Southampton. Some interesting shouts in there from FIFA, I must say. You know, Bournemouth a bit of a wild card. So Sheffield United just finishing the season on 22 points. Not the best in the end according to FIFA, just 5 wins, 7 draws and 26 losses, conceding 80 goals. Probably wasn't helped by the fact that they do still need to bring in a goalkeeper. Moving upwards from the relegation zone though, we've got Crystal Palace just avoiding relegation by 1 point, Watford similar to that, and then we've got Aston Villa there on 41 points. I think that at this point in time, you know, Villa fans would certainly take that, finishing 15th in the Premier League. That's not a bad finish at all. They scored 39 goals and conceded 53. But moving even further up the table, Norwich have had a mad season. We then got West Ham, Brighton, Leicester City and Norwich finishing in 11th place. What a finish that would be for the Canaries. As we can see, they're scoring 47 goals and conceding 48. Not a bad season at all. Finishing it on 48 points, I'm sure that every single Norwich fan would take that finish right now. Then moving up from that, we've got Everton, Burnley, Wolves and Newcastle finishing in 7th. Okay, that's a bit pushy, that, you know, without Rafa Benitez. FIFA obviously fancies Steve Bruce to have a big season with Newcastle there. I'm not so sure about that. It's actually Wolves who have won this one, beating Watford by 4 goals to 1. I think Wolves are set up for a bit of an interesting season next time as well. They've got the Europa League to contend with at this point in time, but transfer activity, they've not really been too busy so far. I think they've let quite a lot of people go so far. You know, a couple of Championship clubs picking up their players, Helder Costa and Cavallero, going to Leeds and Fulham respectively. So I think that Wolves need to pull their finger out sooner rather than later and make a couple of signings. But looking at the Premier League table, it's an interesting one. In terms of the top scorers, they've got Harry Kane in there scoring 23 goals. After that, Sadio Mane. I want to know if any of the newly promoted teams are in there. So we've got Billy Sharp in there scoring 12 goals for Sheffield United, not the worst return in the world. Marco Stiepermann for Norwich City scoring 10 goals as well, so that's not too bad going from him. Looking at the individual stats from each side, we've got El Ghazi finishing as Aston Villa's top scorer with 9 goals this season. Wesley, their new striker, finishing the season with 7. Norwich's top scorer was Marco Stiepermann, the absolute brute at attacking mid, 6'3", what an absolute man-mountain he is. They signed Pereira from Man United, he got 9 goals for them. Teemu Pukki coming up with 8 goals, Arnold Hernandez Sanders with 6. And then for Sheffield United, we had Billy Sharp in there with 12 goals, Dave McGoldrick bagging 7, John Fleck with 5, Callum Robinson only getting 4 goals, not the best return for him, Luke Freeman with 1. How did Ravel Morrison finish the season with 1 goal and 1 assist, so not the best return in the world for what could be a bit of a wild card this year. I think he could do big things though. Looking at the top 6 of the Championship from this career mode save, it was Leeds and Fulham going up again. If you remember from our video a couple of weeks ago where we simulated the Championship season, that was the exact same top 2. So FIFA really is fancying Leeds and Fulham to be going up this season. Then making up the playoffs, we've got Forest, Derby, Sheffield Wednesday and Stoke City. But guys, they have it. That will now wrap it up for this video. So make sure to let me know in the comments down below, what are your early predictions for the Premier League? Who do you see getting relegated? Who are your favourites to win it at the moment? But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for this video. So thank you so much for watching. If you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. As well as that, make sure to subscribe for some regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.